Israel struck military sites in Iran early on Saturday, but did not appear to strike sensitive oil and nuclear targets after urgent calls from allies for restraint. Iranian media showed air defences firing at projectiles over the skies of Tehran. It was not clear whether the overnight strikes would trigger further escalation in a region already on fire with conflicts in Gaza and Lebanon.
We conducted targeted and precise strikes.
Israel's military said scores of jets had completed 3 waves of strikes before dawn against missile factories and other sites, in retaliation for an Iranian attack this month. It warned Iran not to hit back. Fears of an escalation between the heavily armed foes have soared since October 1st, when Iran launched around 200 ballistic missiles at Israel, killing 1 person in the Israeli-occupied West Bank in response to earlier Israeli moves. Israel notified the United States before striking, but Washington was not involved in the operation, a US official told Reuters. Shahram Akbarzadeh of Melbourne's Alfred Deakin Institute said it wasn't in Iranian leaders' interest to escalate further.
So this has been a calibrated attack, and the ball is in Iran's court just to see how they will respond. I think the expectation in Tel Aviv is that Iran would be too fearful to respond to the attack, and that Israel has achieved its objective.
The streets of Tehran appeared busy on Saturday. Tehran said its air defences had successfully countered the attack, but 2 soldiers were killed and some locations suffered limited damage. A semi-official Iranian news agency vowed a proportional reaction to the Israeli strikes, though Israel's military did not change public safety restrictions across the country, in a sign it did not expect an immediate Iranian response. A senior Biden official said Israel's, quote, targeted and proportional strikes should be the end of direct exchange of fire between the 2 countries, but that Washington was prepared to once again defend Israel if Iran should choose to respond.
Leaders of Israel and Iran on Sunday appeared to give conflicting accounts of Israel's attack on Iran a day earlier, with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying the airstrikes, quote, hit hard Iran's defenses and missile production, and Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei saying that narrative was exaggerated. Netanyahu spoke at a memorial service for soldiers killed in the Israel-Hamas war on Sunday.
In the early morning hours of Saturday, we fulfilled our promise. The Air Force attacked throughout Iran. We hit hard Iran's defense capabilities and its ability to produce missiles that are aimed at us. The attack in Iran was precise and powerful and achieved all of its objectives.
The heavily armed arch-enemies have engaged in a cycle of retaliatory moves against each other for months. Saturday's long-anticipated strike involved scores of fighter jets bombing targets near the capital Tehran and in western provinces. At least 4 soldiers were killed. The attack came after an Iranian missile barrage directed at Israel on October 1st, much of which Israel said was downed by its air defenses. Khamenei on Sunday said the country was weighing its response while disputing Israel's account.
The second point is related to this evil move that Israel made here 2 nights ago. Well, they made a mistake. They, of course, exaggerated it. Their exaggeration is wrong, but note that downplaying it is also wrong. Saying no, there was nothing, it wasn't important, and this is also wrong. The calculation error of the Zionist regime needs to be disrupted. They have a calculation error regarding Iran.
With warfare raging in Gaza and Lebanon, direct confrontation between Israel and Iran risks spiraling into a wider regional conflict. But a day after the airstrikes, there was no sign they would spark further escalation. A senior administration official for U.S. President Joe Biden said the attacks were a proportional response to Iran's earlier attacks with low risk of civilian harm, while Biden has called for a halt to the escalation.
Israeli forces withdrew from a hospital complex in northern Gaza on Saturday, 1 day after storming it. Health officials said on Friday Israeli forces had stormed Kamal Adwan Hospital, one of 3 medical facilities struggling to operate in the area. The Palestinian Health Ministry said troops had detained dozens of male medical staff and some of the patients. Nurse Maysoon Alian said they were trapped in the reception area during the siege.
On the next day in the morning, we were all surrounded from all sides. There was shooting from all directions with bombs and mortars, and they evacuated all those who were sheltering here.
Medics said at least 44 of the hospital's 70-member team had been detained by the army. It later said the army had released 14 of them, including the hospital's director. An Israeli military spokesperson declined to comment on the hospital's report. Before the army raid, medics said at least 600 people had been in the hospital. Medics said at least 2 children had died inside the intensive care unit after Israeli fire hit the generators and oxygen station in the facility on Friday. 3 nurses were injured during the raid, and 3 ambulance vehicles were destroyed, the health ministry said. The Israeli military said it operated in the area of the hospital based on intelligence, quote, regarding the presence of terrorists and terrorist infrastructure there. Israel says its forces returned to northern Gaza to root out Hamas fighters who regrouped in the area.
With his 3rd straight U.S. presidential campaign coming down to the wire, Republican candidate Donald Trump has mused at rallies about hydrogen-powered cars exploding, getting spray paint off limestone, and marveled at how billionaire backer Elon Musk's rocket had returned to Earth in one piece. He's complained about Democratic rival Kamala Harris's work ethic, praised Chinese President Xi Jinping, and taken aim at Harris's celebrity supporters.
And we don't have Beyonce, who couldn't fill the arena last night.
And Trump has been making headlines in ways that have nothing to do with how he would run the country ahead of the November 5th election. He turned one rally into an impromptu dance party.
Let's go nice and loud.
Shared a locker room tale about golfer Arnold Palmer, and cooked French fries at a McDonald's.
We're going to put it right here.
A consistent theme of Trump's rallies is the false assertion that in 4 short years, Democrats have transformed the nation into a dystopian state. But his unfocused behavior and unusual rhetoric risks alienating some voters in a race that remains so tight that any swing of a few thousand votes in several competitive states could determine the next president. Here's the Brookings Institution's Elaine Kmark.
He's sort of guaranteeing a solid 46 or 47%. But there's also over 50% in polls who say they wouldn't vote for him. So he's really turning off the very people, the small percentage that could put him over the top.
A spokesperson for Trump's campaign said the former president's method conveys important stories and helps explain policies.
You know, I do the weave, right? Always a weave, right? And always end up in the right location.
But it's also giving the Harris campaign ample ammunition.
And it is clear he has become increasingly unhinged. But the last time, at least there were people who could control him.
Trump has adopted a more frenetic campaign schedule, with time growing short, recently holding events in 6 of the 7 states likely to decide the election. A recent Reuters Ipsos poll showed Harris leading Trump nationally by a marginal 46% to 43%.
Superstar Beyonce officially endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris on Friday night in Houston, Texas. Accompanied by former Destiny's Child member Kelly Rowland, the Houston-born Beyonce walked on stage in front of a crowd of some 30,000 attending Harris's abortion rights-themed rally.
I'm not here as a celebrity. I'm not here as a politician. I'm here as a mother. A mother who cares deeply about the world my children and all of our children live in.
Beyonce's first political appearance this election cycle comes at a crucial time for Harris. National opinion polls show her summertime lead over Republican opponent Donald Trump in the race for the November 5th election has all but evaporated. However, Harris has picked up a considerable advantage over Trump with women, who most polls and surveys show make up much of Beyonce's audience. But a communications professor at Pace University told Reuters that while Beyonce is one of the entertainment industry's most powerful women, celebrities are not guarantors of political victory for candidates. Harris has had Hollywood endorsements from actors Julia Roberts and Jane Fonda, and musicians Bruce Springsteen, Usher, and Lizzo. Trump has won the endorsement of wrestler Hulk Hogan and musicians Ted Nugent and Kid Rock.
The time has come for a discussion on whether Britain should commit to reparations for its role in the transatlantic slave trade. That's what leaders of Commonwealth nations said in a joint statement on Saturday as they wrapped up a week-long biannual summit in Samoa, though Britain has long rejected calls for financial compensation for nations affected by slavery.
Noting the calls for a discussion on reparatory justice
At a news conference, Commonwealth Secretary-General Patricia Scotland read out the statement, noting the issue's importance to the group's 56 members, who are mostly former British colonies.
The time has come for a meaningful, truthful and respectful conversation towards forging a common future based on equity.
Victims of what's called blackbirding were also included in the statement. That's a term for people from places such as the Pacific Islands being deceived, coerced or kidnapped to work on plantations. The statement did not mention what form reparations should take.
So we agreed a plan here in Samoa to boost investment across the Commonwealth.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer told a separate news conference that the summit's reparation discussions have not been about money. With the climate crisis the other concern topping the group's agenda, the Commonwealth leaders also issued their first Oceans Declaration on Saturday. It agrees that a nation's maritime boundaries should remain fixed, even if climate change causes small island states to be submerged. That would allow atoll nations to continue reaping the economic benefit of vast fishing grounds after losing its lands. The declaration bolsters momentum for international law to recognise the perpetual statehood of sinking island states. Many of the Commonwealth nations, including the summit's host Samoa, are low-lying islands at risk from rising sea levels caused by climate change.
Georgia's most powerful man claimed victory in an election on Saturday, according to early official results. With 70% of precincts counted, those results showed the ruling Georgian Dream Party had won 53% of the vote, the Electoral Commission said. The results do not include most ballots cast by Georgians living overseas. The Georgian opposition initially also celebrated victory, and some monitors reported election violations. But a parallel count operated by one of the opposition parties showed Georgian Dream in a strong position to win a majority. Though it lost out to the combined opposition in parts of the capital, Tbilisi, it won margins of up to 90% in some rural areas. However, opposition parties are contesting the results and said they would not accept them, with the leader of the Coalition for Change party calling it a, quote, constitutional coup, according to the Interpress news agency. Georgian Dream's billionaire founder Bidzina Ivanishvili, the opposition and foreign diplomats had cast the election as a watershed moment that would decide if Georgia moves closer to the West or leans back towards Russia. Ivanishvili told a crowd in Tbilisi that, quote, it is a rare case in the world that the same party achieves such success in such a difficult situation. This is a good indicator of the talent of the Georgian people. Ivanishvili, who made his fortune in Russia in the 1990s, came to power in 2012 advocating pro-Western views alongside a pragmatic policy towards Russia. He's since soured on the West, accusing a global war party of seeking to drag Georgia into war with Russia, even as he insists Georgia is on course to join the EU. If victory for Ivanishvili's Dream Party is confirmed, it would be a blow to the EU's hopes of bringing more former Soviet republics into its orbit.
Uruguay seems poised for a runoff election next month. That's after a presidential vote on Sunday where neither candidate secured the majority needed for a first-round win. Results showed that center-left candidate Yamandu Orsi of the Broad Front Party secured over 41% with 60% of votes tallied, while conservative Alvaro Delgado had secured around 29%. Speaking to supporters Sunday evening in the capital Montevideo, which has historically backed the center-left, Orsi struck an upbeat tone despite not securing an outright victory.
It is a moment of joy, deep happiness, change and hope. Today the Uruguayan people have won. Today hope is triumphing, and you are here to prove it.
However, the mood was more subdued among some Broad Front voters that Reuters spoke to, with some saying the result was tighter than they expected. Sunday's distant third-place finisher was the young, social media-savvy conservative Andres Ojeda. He has pledged to support Delgado to block a left victory if he is knocked out in the first round. His near 17% of votes, combined with Delgado's 29%, according to current tallies, could be enough to eventually beat the left in a runoff. As initial results came in on Sunday, Delgado voiced confidence in his chances in a second round.
Here is a team, a coalition that today has started to form a government. That there is a team, a coalition that today started to select a president of the republic. There is a team, a coalition that will not allow our future to be taken away. We won't allow it.
Uruguay's race between two centrist candidates bucks a Latin American trend of sharp right-left divides. The significant overlap between the major conservative and liberal coalitions has taken some of the sting out of the result. Vote counting was also underway Sunday for a binding referendum on pension reform that would lower the retirement age by 5 years to 60, and another that would boost police powers to fight drug-related crime. Exit polls show both were likely rejected.